Welcome back to Secure AI Now, a podcast hosted by the Alliance for Secure AI. I'm your host, Brendan Steinhauser, CEO of the Alliance, and I'm here with my co-host today, Dylan Oliver, our social media manager. He's been staying on the big topics of the day, and we want to jump in this morning talking about something that's been in the news quite a lot this week, which is Meta's policies on AI companions. And before I jump in, I just want to say, hey, Dylan, welcome, and looking forward to chatting with you today.
Thanks for having me on. This is a crazy topic that we're about to talk about today. It's actually kind of unreal that we're having this conversation, but I think it's definitely an important one to have.
Yeah, definitely. You know, just kind of set the stage here. I've been having a lot of conversations with friends and acquaintances and family members about AI and about various things. It's always good to kind of take the temperature and see what are they thinking about, what are they reading, what are they seeing. And sometimes I'm surprised by the amount of information that they're getting online, whether it's videos or posts or things like that, you know, news coverage. And then sometimes things sort of slip by and they're not tracking. But something that really made an impact this week that I think we both saw pretty quickly was, you know, the policy that Meta had in place that a media outlet, Reuters, was able to kind of expose. And the policy essentially passed scrutiny by the lawyers and by the policy team at Meta. And it had to do with the types of conversations that AI companions could have with children. So I want to get your reaction to kind of to that and tell us a little bit more from your perspective. What did that Reuters report say? What really grabbed your attention, and what's your kind of overall take on kind of what the policy was and what happened there?
Yeah, so basically it's called the Gen AI content risk standards that Meta has. Reuters did a little bit of investigation into it to see exactly what is going on in there. And what they found was that it explicitly allows that it being Meta AI explicitly is allowed to have romantic or sensual conversations with children. There's really no age limit on this. The craziest part about all of this, I personally think, is obviously with this document that Meta had, with these standards set in place, this probably went through legal counsel. This probably went through their chief ethicist. Like, this went through numerous levels of people, and it still was able to be out here and in the public. So what we're looking at is Meta AI has no restrictions on what age these people can be using it, and what age, what conversations can be going on, what exactly these AI chatbots can or cannot say to these kids. So that's kind of the most concerning part here, but it's also very concerning to see, you know, this went through multiple levels of bureaucracy within the organization, and it still was able to be realistic.
Yeah. Some of the language that was allowed was, you know, pretty inappropriate for children, certainly as young as 8 or 9, but even older children. Very sexualized language and a lot of innuendo and that sort of stuff. And, you know, I think, the thing that really bothers me too, as a parent and as just a citizen, is that, you know, they felt like morally and ethically that kind of thing was okay, right? And I think what it seems to me what these big tech companies are doing is sort of trying to go after younger and younger kids, get them hooked online to various apps, to social media apps, but now of course AI companions or AI, you know, whatever's coming down the road as well, different technology, and to get them hooked younger so that they keep them engaged for their lifetime, right? And we know what social media already does to the brain of a young person, what it does to adults as well. But really young people, they're not fully kind of developed in their brain functionality yet. And so I think the social media companies, in my opinion, kind of know what they're doing. They're trying to basically get these kids hooked, and that's bad enough. But then you go to the type of language that they were allowing these companions to have with these children, and just kind of seems beyond the pale. And I think a lot of people, as people find out about this, there's going to be more and more people outraged about that. And then it kind of makes you wonder, what else are they doing that we don't know about?
Yeah. You know, half of children by the age of 11 have access to a smartphone. And then teenagers age 13 through 17, you're looking at about 95% of kids in that age range have access to a smartphone or own one themselves. So basically what's going on here is those applications are, you know, you're able to download those, especially from those ages. with Meta AI, we're looking at a problem here. We're looking at a problem that could potentially be catastrophic to their organization. But it's been very interesting to see kind of the responses that have come from this. It's funny that Meta literally just came out and they were like, "Oh, these are inconsistent with our policies," but it's their policies in place. Like, this was able to happen. They can say that it's inconsistent with their policies, but at the end of the day, like, it's quite crazy that this was allowed to happen.
Yeah, it happened, and it happened probably countless times. We've seen millions of people using AI companions just in the last year or so. So there's probably a lot of examples, a lot of conversations that we'll never know about that probably went even further than what was reported. So it's very troubling, especially as it relates to kids. I thought it was interesting when the media report broke. It did not take long for someone who has been on top of these issues to speak out, and someone who's quite a powerful person in Washington, D.C., and that's Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri. So he came out pretty strongly on this and called for a congressional investigation. I think we have a copy of that letter that he sent to Meta. But what was your take on, is that the right the right kind of response approach? What can Congress do? What should they be doing in addition to shedding light on this problem in order to, kind of tell the companies basically, like, you can't do this. This is a bad enough harm to society that if you guys don't fix this, we might have to step in.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So Josh Hawley was the first one to speak out about this when it happened. So he launched an investigation, or called for an investigation by Congress into Meta for this specifically. He was kind of leading the charge on it. And what we saw from this was a group of bipartisan senators coming together with Hawley. We're looking at Amy Klobuchar, for example. We've got, Katie Britt from Alabama, Brian Schatz, Chris Coons, for example. I think there were 8 U.S. senators on this bipartisan letter that was sent out just a couple days ago on Tuesday. So the letter basically says, my favorite quote from it is, "The well-being of children should not be sacrificed in the race for AI." I think that's a very strong statement to make. It's great to see the bipartisan support, though, with this. It's good to see some people are talking about it. I think in the House it's been pretty quiet, but in the U.S. Senate specifically, there is a bipartisan group of individuals that is ready to take on the fight for this. But we'll see how far it actually goes. We'll see what actually comes of this. But I think this is a pretty good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And generally my perspective has been, if we shed light on what the big tech companies are doing, what the frontier labs are doing, if we have transparency, that can lead to accountability. And oftentimes the companies will do the right thing because of the scrutiny, because of the transparency, not necessarily because they want to. And again, in terms of what laws should be passed in the states or in Congress, it seems to me like we want the least amount of regulation necessary to get the job done. We want smart, targeted, narrow legislation. At the same time, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems to deal with on this sort of social harm side. There's a lot of problems to deal with on the jobs front. And then, of course, all these other issues we've talked about with building a super intelligent system, super intelligent AI that could pose all sorts of really catastrophic harms. And so it's a tricky proposition. But I think with watching members of Congress who are leading on this, taking action quickly, exposing what's going on. And frankly, we were talking earlier about how Reuters, the news organization, also deserves a lot of credit just for finding out about this and printing the article and getting people to pay attention. But I think that combination of good journalism with members of Congress speaking out will at least kind of create some pressure for these companies to do the right thing, even if they are trying to avoid doing the right thing. I think transparency and accountability go hand in hand here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think transparency is important. I think Meta needs to come forward and actually explain what's going on here, not just coming out and saying this is inconsistent with their policies, because clearly it's not. I will say, take a look at what Elon Musk has done. In just the last few days, he saw the problem here with Meta AI, and XAI has come out to say that they have kids mode now for their XAI app. So what we're looking at is other companies coming out and speaking out about how it's important to have child safeguards and to ensure that children are not able to access the full content of what these chatbots can put out. So Elon's already gone as far to make this a reality. At least Elon, at least XAI and Grok is coming out with this to try to find a solution, to put some safeguards in place to ensure that this doesn't happen to children on other platforms. But it's still very interesting that we don't really have much from Meta about this. They're not really talking about it. They're kind of brushing it under the rug a little bit. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what other companies do, OpenAI, Anthropic. Let's see what they have for child safety standards in place.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think sometimes companies, don't act unless there is scrutiny, there is pressure, and then they kind of make a change. But it's good to see XAI say, okay, we've seen the problem. Now we're going to try and fix it. We're going to try and solve it. We don't expect it to be perfect, but they're trying to put some safeguards in place. That's exactly what we need to be doing, I think, as a society, both in terms of the private sector, but also elected officials, is looking for those solutions, looking for adjusting to kind of make things better and put those safeguards in place. I think you need a culture, right, of safety, a culture of security, so that when these things come up, you're able to get ahead of them, as opposed to just saying we don't care, we're going to sweep it under the rug. I think that's absolutely the wrong approach. I will say it's interesting in doing this work. Kind of one observation I have is, we are tracking a lot of different harms, and we talked about some of those already. But it does seem to me that this issue with sort of online safety for kids might be the biggest issue in America in terms of getting parents, getting regular citizens to kind of pay attention to what's going on, because parents are extremely powerful. Parents care about their children, will throw themselves in front of a bus for their children to protect them. And I think that I'm seeing that in conversations we're having, and in some of the media interviews that I've done. The feedback on that from parents has been really positive. They're shocked that this is happening. They're worried about the potential harms. And we've seen that in the data and the polling as well, that they're very motivated to protect their kids. And they're very worried about the rise of things like AI companions. And a couple of things I think related to that are not just sort of the explicit content that these companions have, been using or sharing with kids, but also this problem of sycophancy of these models sort of going wherever the conversation goes. And if the kid is depressed or anxious or whatever, it can often lead them down that road, as opposed to helping them find help. So we've even seen examples of children, unfortunately, being led down very dark places, all the way to having suicidal thoughts, attempts, and even one that I know, one kid that unfortunately took his own life in Florida. So I think the sort of this bucket of issues seems really really important to continue to talk about, to really sound the alarm. And again, I think this is a great way to sort of get parents to pay attention and say, hey, you've got to understand what's going on. It's going to get worse. It's going to get faster. More and more people are going to be using this stuff. There's a lot of potential harms that could come our way. But what are you kind of seeing out there? You are leading our social media effort at the Alliance. What do you see online in terms of different issues people care about? Does that line up with what you're seeing? Are you seeing something a little different online? What's your take on that?
This is one of those issues that's really uniting a lot of people. There's really no argument against this specific topic. That's the main thing that's working in the favor of AI safety right now, which is good to see. I mean, we need to be able to win sometimes. And in order to win, you need to expose some of these big tech companies for the exploitation of what their products are doing. And this is one of those topics that we've seen on socials that's really been a big one. But I think another big thing, we already talked about it a little bit, but it's like, to see the congressional support for some of this has been huge as well, in such a bipartisan way, which is a little interesting. I mean, name other issues that you can get such bipartisan support on. We're seeing the letter that came out, I believe it had 5 Democrats, 3 Republicans on it, Josh Hawley leading the charge from the GOP side, Amy Klobuchar leading the way from the Democrat side. So we're seeing a bipartisan movement for AI safety in America, which is very, very great to see. But this is definitely one of those main topics, and we'll see where this kind of extends. We'll see how far this really goes and if there's more to come from it. But, I would like to see Congress actually act on some of this and put in some proper safeguards so that we can ensure that these big tech companies are not exploiting children.
Yeah, absolutely. We did see some bipartisan action on a bill recently that was passed overwhelmingly, the Take It Down Act, that was kind of related to the use of AI in child pornography, for example. So there's some good news there that a bipartisan, overwhelming majority of senators and members of the House passed that into law, and the president signed it. So that's a good step there. It does feel like sometimes we're chasing the problems, but we have to, right? We have to not only kind of react to what's going on, but maybe get ahead of some problems and be more proactive. And I think that's one thing that I would say I'd like to see more of is Congress and states being more proactive, coming up with ideas to get ahead of the problem. And again, it's difficult. It's not easy, but there are a lot of good ideas out there on all sorts of topics. So I think it would be good to get them to do that. I want to, really double down on what you said about the bipartisan nature of this effort. It's really been fascinating to watch, a lot of fun to encourage, to really see people on the left, on the right, and the center, both inside of Congress and outside of Congress, who are speaking out about AI safety and security. It's been really fascinating, and to see how many Democratic senators and Republican senators, but also Republican and Democratic state legislators and governors and attorneys general coming out on different aspects of this and speaking out on the potential harms of AI. It's really united a lot of people, and so I hope we continue to see that. It feels like the one issue in America right now that is not politicized, that is not polarized, and you have opposition to safeguards on both sides, and you have support for safeguards on both sides. But what do you think the prospects are for continuing this momentum, this sort of bipartisan momentum in this space?
Well, it's going to take a grassroots movement of people, grassroots movement of individuals, organizations to actually come forward and say, hey, this is not good, and they need to speak out about it. I mean, luckily for us, many people are starting to speak up on this, but the more and more members of Congress, I think, are going to have a lot of pull with getting this in the direction that we want it to go to. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. I know that the news with AI every day is changing, and there's always new topics that are at the forefront of all of the news articles. But what I will say is the more and more people that are not afraid to speak out against this, other organizations out here, members of Congress as well, those are really going to be the people that move this needle in the right direction. So I think it's an exciting time ahead to see what exactly happens. I think this Reuters story is really the first step to seeing some legitimate change come in. But like you mentioned a little bit earlier, it goes way deeper than just this. There's health advice that's being given out by chatbots to people. People are literally committing suicide because of conversations they're having, children sometimes, because of conversations that they're having with these chatbots. So we'll see what happens, but I think we are in the right direction on getting the word out there, spreading the message, and making sure that the public knows that this is bad and we need safeguards to ensure that it doesn't keep happening.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, there's been a lot of coverage on the mental health aspect, again, especially among children, whether it is the suicidal thoughts, whether it is self-harm, self-mutilation, a lot of horrible things that some of these chatbots are helping these kids consider, helping them, giving them instructions to do certain things, really, really horrific stuff. And then also just broadly the potential for mental health with, studies like this Stanford study that showed that actually the chatbots can encourage delusion, encourage psychosis. And, some have criticized that study and that argument, saying, well, it's just people who have a predisposition to mental health or to delusion, but that doesn't make it any better. That's a lot of people. There are a lot of people struggling with mental health issues in this country. And so I was listening to one podcast where a co-host was just kind of brushing it off and saying it wasn't that big of a problem. But, tell that to the families that are dealing with this, tell that to the kids that are dealing with this and that are impacted by this. And by the way, this is just going to increase. The number of problems will increase as the number of users of AI companions and chatbots goes up and up and up. So I think you're right. I think we have to call attention to this. We have to kind of really, help wake people up to this and say, hey, this is going on. As a parent, as a citizen, as an advocate, you have to really help us spread the word about this, and then put some heat out there on the people that are building these things and encourage them to get it right. I want to close by asking you a question about action, about grassroots action. It's something we've talked about a lot at the Alliance. For people that are watching this now or in the future, what would you say are just a couple of basic things people can do to get involved and to support AI safety and security? As a regular citizen who might feel like they don't know what to do, what are just a couple of simple things they can do?
The age of AI is here, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's at home, and we need to be able to adapt to that and adapt to this new lifestyle that is being forced upon us. But everybody can get involved. There's so many ways that we can do this. There are numerous organizations out here doing great work promoting AI safety, AI guardrails, but also the simplest thing you can do is, attend a town hall meeting that your congressman is holding. Call your congressman's office, share your concerns about AI safety in America and what can be done here in Washington to change that and move the needle a little bit. It's little things like that, simple phone calls, but also just, it could be as small as grassroots attending meetings, PTO meetings, and having these conversations. A lot of school districts across America are also using AI programs in their schools. So as AI continues to grow, as more products are rolled out, I think it's up to the parents really to lead the charge on this.
Yeah, well said and good advice for all of us. I think my experience has been people are starting to pay attention to this more and more. And our job is to continue to help educate them, put things in front of them to say, hey, your concerns are validated. This is why. Here's the data to back it up. Here's some articles to back it up. And then to get them to take some of these actions you're talking about. But as you said, we follow this very closely every day, every week. We're reading the news clips. We're seeing new reports, new studies, new efforts, new legislation being proposed. So it's moving very fast, not to mention the commercial business side, all the different things happening with the finance side of things in AI. But yeah, just encourage everybody to continue to pay attention, listen to podcasts, read books about the topic, read articles about the topic, get yourself up to speed, and be confident that when you do communicate that you actually do know more than you think you know. And you have every right to call your congressman, to call your state lawmakers and ask them to take some action on this. Because as a citizen, this is going to impact you, whether you're a parent or not, whether you're a student, whether you're retired, you're worried about your grandkids, whether you're a small business owner, truck driver, welder, teacher, doctor, it's going to impact all of us. So Dylan, I want to give you the last word to close us out here, but I just want to encourage everyone watching to feel empowered to take action and to help us work toward AI safety and security.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I said it earlier in the show. It's not my quote, but I'm going to say it again. But the well-being of children should not be sacrificed in the race for AI. And I think it's important that we have some bipartisan senators speaking out against this, and hopefully it goes a long way.
Great. Thank you, Dylan. We'll continue the fight. Thank you, everyone, for watching Secure AI Now. I'm your host, Brendan Steinhauser, the CEO of the Alliance for Secure AI, and we look forward to seeing you next time.